Welcome to CIO Leadership Live. I'm Lee Rennick, VP Tech Evangelist for IDC, and I'm very excited to introduce and welcome Kirsty Mason, CIO of Bentley Motors. Kirsty, welcome to the show today. I really appreciate you joining us. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your current role?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Lee. I'm Kirsty Mason. I have to keep checking myself because I'm recently married, and I do keep forgetting my name, which is unfortunate. I'm CIO at Bentley. I've been at Bentley Motors since January 2022, so 3 years, 3 months, and quite a few days. 23 days, I'd say, so not that I'm counting. I've been working in IT for around 34 years, lots of different industries over that time, travel, telecoms, cruise lines, airlines, insurance companies, outsourced service providers. So I do think there's not many things that I haven't seen over those years, at least twice as well.
Wow, you've had an amazing career and just having the opportunity to work in those different sectors, especially in technology, and seeing right now how we're really at the precipice of a new age of technology, potentially with AI and agentic AI. So I'm really thrilled to have you on the show today. Thanks so much for joining us.
No, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, so I really wanted to talk about that actually in segue. When we first met, we really talked a lot about women in technology. I'm a big supporter of an organization here in Canada called Hacker Gal. They work with young girls, ensuring they have a safe space to learn about technology and to play with technology. We've been seeing some not so great rates around the share of women in tech roles in Europe. It's heading towards a decline to 21% by 2027. 43% of women in the tech sector think about leaving the role at least once a week, which is staggering to hear. And girls, like I said, going into STEM, age 11 are really interested in it. By 15, maybe they switch because there's a lack of role models. So the stats aren't really great. So I'd love to learn more just about your viewpoint around that and maybe some actions you believe tech leaders and businesses can do to support women in tech.
Okay, so I think there's so much we can do, and there's things I do t try to do myself. I think the most important thing is getting out there and sharing stories, because when you hear a story and it's someone's personal story and their journey, that's something that you can kind of gravitate to a little bit more. So that's why it's important to do things like this. I've done other podcasts at universities to try and get in at universities as well, to sort of say to people, and you can actually be a normal human being as well. A lot of people seem put off by moving into leadership roles because they see you have to be a certain way or very corporate, and I'm not a very corporate person at all, so I'm quite down to earth and normal, and I think people see more real people as well. Bringing them true selves to work helps people to feel more comfortable to go into those roles and progress through the ranks as well.
Well, I appreciate that. And I actually apologize. I skipped questions. So maybe we can go back to question one and just talk a little bit about your own like your own journey in the business space and in technology. And, maybe any lessons learned, any maybe interaction you had with people that really helped you want to be in the tech space. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that too.
So, so years and years ago, and people probably in the UK would know this more than others, there was a program called Tomorrow's World, and it was all about the future and what that could look like. And I was fascinated by this show because in one particular episode, and there was a woman presenter on it called Maggie Philbin. I once got a mention on her from LinkedIn. It made my career at that point
Oh,
in my
wow.
career as well.
Wow.
Um, they were talking about homes of the future where you'd have mobile devices, and this is before we knew anything about mobile
Yep.
phones, and you'd have surfaces where you could charge things, and self-charging devices, all way before its time. It was all a bit space age, and I used to think, oh, this is so exciting. So they were the sort of things that inspired me then, and the female presenters of those shows, that it was, you could associate yourself being with them. And then as I went into sort of my first role was working in a software development division, And it was in the sort of mid 90s where everyone was frantically recoding all of their systems because year 2000
Yeah.
was coming,
Yeah.
and everybody thought the planes were going to fall out of the sky, that the banking systems were going to crash, that submarines were going to explode, because everybody had not thought of the fact that at some point in the future we'd click in to the next millennium. So they were my very early days in technology. By the time year 2000 came, I was a service delivery manager, and I was on call, and I worked for Royal Mail. And so there was a massive panic, people weren't going to get paid, people weren't going to get the letters, blah, blah, blah. Nothing happened. It was the biggest non-event, I think, that we've had in technology as well over the years. And the head of that development division was actually a female. And so for me, I had some role models who made it almost seem accessible. I was not very academic at school. So I left school without having any formal qualifications. So I felt lucky to even get a job, and to get a job in technology. And it wasn't because I wasn't bright. I was just, I think, more curious of the wider world than an academic, and I like to do things rather than study things. So for me, being able to do coding and learn coding was much more interesting, and I sort of found my route in, and then just continued to sort of grow and move through the ranks over the last 34 or so years. But it's been tough because there weren't a lot of female role models in that, and I so now when I have apprentices who are joining IT, I still see the world through their eyes when I was joining an IT organization or coming into business, and we speak a whole different language. It's so different to when you're at college or school or university. So knowing how it felt for me, and I can still remember it like it was yesterday, even though it feels like 100 years ago some days. I feel that sense of responsibility to help them feel as comfortable as I did when I first joined that development division all those hundreds of years ago.
Not that many years ago, but that's really interesting. So it sounds for me like for you, representation, first of all, seeing that TV presenter. I feel the same way. I had those kind of role models. I was just talking to my husband about it a few weeks ago. There were certain role models that I looked to that were in the media, and I'd be like, wow, this woman looks like completely like, how did they get there? And so there were those things. But it sounds like now you've been very intentional in making sure that younger people coming up around you also that you exude and the ability to represent women in the space, but also it sounds like you're taking it further and really looking at I, mentorship, or I like to call it womentorship, with those people around you that are starting in their careers.
Yeah, and another thing that I don't have an office. And this is something that I consciously done. Most other people who are my peers still have offices. And I don't. I book a desk the same as everyone else. So if people are really unlucky, they're sat next to the CIO. But I say it's just a role. It isn't me as a person. That's the role I perform when I come to work. We just have different responsibilities. We're all part of a team, all with the same common objectives. So I need to be part of that team as well.
That's truly inspiring. I mean, for anyone listening in, that's the opportunity to interact with individuals within your organization without creating that sort of space that seems more sacred than others. So I really love that. And maybe that ties in really well to the next question, which is around business and IT roadmaps. So the last time we spoke, you chatted about building a joint business and IT roadmap that really leveraged enterprise systems and also linked closely to Bentley's value streams. So maybe could you talk about building the IT strategy, the digital transformation to support the business value that you developed and led?
Okay, so when I came into automotive, I was new to automotive, and again, it was like learning a whole different language, and in some senses, you have to learn another language because many of the abbreviations are actually tied to German words as well. So even when you know them, you don't understand what they mean either.
Okay.
So for me, it was about taking that big step back looking at our business and saying, well, we're all about either creating, designing and creating an amazing product, which is the car. We then have customers that we service through the web or the app, or we have the enterprise that we support that deliver those things. So they essentially broke it down to those three value streams. Within those value streams, I then said, okay, so what are the processes that we're doing? So we're either designing a car, building a car, marketing a car, selling a car. So these became our ecosystems that we then started saying, okay, well, what are all of the systems that we use to do those things, and what end-to-end processes do they support? So for me, I like logic, and so I was trying to put all the logic around this. When we then looked at that and we could see, actually, let's take away the system name and look at the capability that it gives us. So an example of capability is I need to have data visualization, and we might be using Tableau, we might be using Power BI. But what's the capability we really need, and are we using the right tool for the right thing? Because if we're just visualizing some data in Excel, there's
Yeah.
probably a way to do it rather than if you're joining data together from different sources, etc. So it was really then looking to rationalize the amount of systems we had delivering the capability. So that's where we had to take the business on this journey with us, because it would involve them potentially changing the systems that they used. We know people get very precious about the systems that they use. They know it, they love it, they understand it. I don't want to change it, thank you very much. Even though that thing's cheaper, they don't necessarily like change. So actually saying that the end-to-end processes could be streamlined across the business, we can reduce complexity in the landscape, we can reduce cost of delivery of that to the business from an IT perspective, that gives us more money to invest in other things or future ready in our organization as well. It's been a huge journey, but now when I hear the business talking about we need to add this capability to the roadmap, and it is a true capability, and we use Lean IX and the manufacturing model within there, I feel like I felt when the first time my daughter said please or thank you, and I didn't have to nudge her. It's
Right.
almost like,
Right.
oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
they've learned the language, they know what to do, and they know how
Yeah.
to do it. And
Yeah.
that makes me feel, really proud that they're there, and it's taking them on that journey and explaining rather than telling. You have to sort of explain the benefit, so what's in it for them all the time, not why
Yeah.
it's better for IT strategy.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean, I always, it sounds like it's very inspirational. And, I always reference the IT crowd, the two guys and the woman in the girl in the basement. It's like, have you tried turning it on and off again? I guess also in that roadmap, the capabilities changed, especially post-COVID, of like not them asking you, how do I fix this, but more like, how do we build our business capabilities, right? And it's not about just calling down to you saying, hey, what do I do? You're like saying, here, this is the roadmap we want to build, and this is how things fit together to create business excellence.
Yeah. And when we look at some of the larger enterprise systems, we've probably got the capability already there, that we could switch these 10 things off over here, just use something we've already got,
Yeah.
and make things even better for the business. So that's been something we've been working really closely with our sort of strategic partners in those spaces, to say you need to come on this journey with us, because actually we will then be a real sort of success story for you
Yeah.
to help define your product as well, to say here's how we added value. So I've been pulling everyone in, I've been pulling our partners in, as well as the business to get us there. And it's it's hard. I'm not going to say it is a hard thing to go on, but you just have to start. It's like with everything's hard when you first start it,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially when it's new, when you're changing languages and ways of working, especially when the person doing it doesn't know anything about building cars. You're always going to get potentially a little bit more resistance,
Yeah.
but that's what you need. lots of persistence and patience.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. And it really does segue well into our next question as well, too, because it's around innovation and Gen AI. So, I have a lot of conversations with CIOs and IT leaders from around the globe talking about how they're utilizing Gen AI to build productivity for the value in their business. Now, IDC, our organization, predicts that in 2025, 2026, most companies are still at the adoption stage, the AI pivot, which will really build that AI fueled business model. I think, we were just chatting before we started recording, and I was saying, one CIO said to me last week, data is the fuel for AI. And so I think there are a lot of components of it that we're seeing through our research that you really have to have excellence in order to make that AI pivot. So just wondering what your thoughts are around this, any predictions for the remainder of 2025?
So I say something similar. I always say there is no AI without data. So the thing that we've been working on for the last 2 years is the data strategy, understanding the governance, the framework, and everything else that we need there as the foundations. We've done a lot of work around data literacy and upskilling the organization as well as we've been doing that in preparedness for AI. Because we know it's the new Kool-Aid. Everybody wants it. Everybody wants it now, but they don't necessarily know what they want it for. So it's about creating that safe space as well where people can plug and play and test and learn.
Mm.
But really, I've been working in partnership with the Chief Strategy Officer to say this needs to be a joint business and IT strategy around data and AI. It can't just be from IT. We need to really work together and work with the business, say, what do we want to use AI for so we can get to value sooner? And if you think about what we've been doing for the last sort of 3 years in moving to the enterprise systems and reducing the systems landscape and really making sure we understand what data we've got in those systems, it's all been sort of creating the pathway and the foundation levels that we need to get us there sooner. Now, there's things that we're doing. So we've had trials of Copilot, and it's people are just really starting to learn. But to me, it's the education's massive because there's a 4-box grid that I reference, and on one side is competence and one side is consciousness. And if we're not careful, we'll have lots of unconscious incompetence, and that's the worst place that we can be. And so for me, the upskilling is where we're putting the focus, and then giving some tools that we know in a safe space for people to really learn to think about where they can get business value from it.
Sounds really wonderful. I appreciate your insights so very much, Kirsty, and I appreciate you joining me today. Thank you so much.
I'm very happy, and I hope that helps some people in some way.
Thanks so much, Kirsty. And if you're interested in listening to this video or others, please head on over to CIO.com.